afternoon, kia ora everybody. Thank you for having us here today. With me is Andrew Goddard from the Secretariat, who supports us, the Constitutional panel. I'm Deborah Coddington. I was born and brought up in a road called Ugly Hill Road, which is, most of you probably know, about halfway between Waipukuro and Rongohau. Now I live out of Martinborough, which is in Wairarapa. I'm one of 12 on the Constitutional Advisory Panel. I'll briefly introduce you to the rest of them. We do have a sort of presentation, but my presentation tends to go all over the place, and Andrew has to try and keep up with me. So from sort of left to right, I'm looking at the wrong screen. Panel members are Dr. Leonie Pihama. She's a research fellow at Waikato University with connections with a wide range of communities and areas. Then Henerewa Potu. She's currently completing a PhD at Massey University, teacher in Kura Kaupapa. She's the youngest member and able to engage rangatahi in Constitution conversation. Dr. Ranganui Walker, he's authored 6 books and he has a huge knowledge of New Zealand and Māori history and currently a member of the Waitangi Tribunal. Honourable John Luxton, farmer, former MP and Cabinet Minister, Company Director, Chairman of Dairy New Zealand. One of our co-chairs, Sir Tony Regan, who brings more than 40 years' experience in governance to the panel, one of the leading negotiators of 2 of the largest treaty settlements, Māori Fisheries and Ngāi Tahu. The other co-chair is Emeritus Professor John Burrows QC, a former law commissioner and who's written the leading text on statute law. He's also written on privacy law and a well-known commentator on our legal system. Professor Linda Tuhiwai-Smith, a specialist in education and Māori development, Pro-Vice Chancellor Māori at Waikato University. Peter Tennant, former Mayor of New Plymouth, in 2010 was nominated for World Mayor, one of the top 10 community leaders, and his commercial life...
It's a conversation, it's sure to cause debate. It's about music.
Sorry about that. And his commercial life has been in hotelier trade and public roles. Then Peter Chin, first generation New Zealand-born Chinese, lived all his life in Dunedin, a lawyer, actively involved in the Chinese community there and former mayor of Dunedin, trustee of the Asian New Zealand Foundation. Bernice Meni, secondary school teacher, represented New Zealand at the OECD Forum as Guardian for Secondary Futures Education Project, former Silver Fern. She's actively involved in the Pacifica community and communication work. And then Honourable Sir Michael Cullen, former Deputy Prime Minister, Chairman of New Zealand Post, Principal Treaty Claims Negotiation for Ngāti Tūwhare Toa. He brings an invaluable knowledge to the panel of the intimate inner machinations of government. As you can see, we've been chosen for our diverse geographical region, be able to get around the country and connect with a number of people, and also for diverse skills. Why do we exist? Well, the panel was set up as an agreement between the Māori Party and the National Party at the urging of the Māori Party as part of their coalition agreement. It's no secret that the Māori Party, as part of their policy, wanted a constitution with the Treaty of Waitangi in it. But the conversation has actually got bigger than that now and taken on a life of its own. And as we've gone around the country, as different members have gone around the country and consulted with different groups and with regional hui, it's become clear that even though this is Māori Party policy, It's certainly not the case that all Māori want the Treaty of Waitangi entrenched in a constitution, if in fact that were to be the case. And while I don't like to start off with a negative, there is a lot of information out there, and we are not charged with writing a constitution. That is not our role. We are there to take submissions from the people. We report to two ministers, to Peter Sharples and to Bill English. And whenever our two co-chairs report to the two ministers, Bill English always says constitutional matters belong to the people. Also in Parliament has been set up a cross-party reference group, and that covers all parties apart from New Zealand First who do wish to take part in it. So there is David Parker from Labour, there is Peter Dunn from United Future, John Banks obviously from ACT, and Kennedy Graham from the Greens. And they are very supportive of this constitutional conversation as well, and meet with the co-chairs as well. So what have we been doing since we've been set up? Well, obviously if you take information back from people and take submissions, you've got to take information to them first so they know what it is that they have to comment on. So we first of all, and you've got to take it out to them in language that they can access. And Constitution, that's a pretty dry subject to a lot of people, but it shouldn't be. It doesn't have to be. New Zealand doesn't actually have a constitution written on one page like the United States of America does. It's only one of 3 countries in the world that doesn't. New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and Israel. But we do have a constitution. It just takes a while to get it all together. And so it's made up of different laws. Some of it's not even written down. It's made up of things like the introduction to the Cabinet Manual. It's all over the place. So we had to get it all together and to get it together in a booklet that people could read and that their eyes wouldn't glaze over and that they'd fall asleep. But we also had to get it peer reviewed by constitutional experts so we didn't get it all wrong, because none of us are experts. So we did that and we put it together in this little booklet and we put that on our website. And then we started consulting and we went to all the organisations and outfits that submit to select committees, and we met with them and asked them to help us with their groups and all of their people and members so we could filter down through them. And we've been meeting with groups like Federated Farmers, Rural Women, Rotary groups, Youth Law, Empower New Zealand, Māori Women's Welfare League, civil rights groups, civil liberties, Grey Power, U3A, Pacifica groups, expats in London, Rotary, community law centres, people in their own homes setting up meetings around the kitchen table with resources, set up a Facebook page, all of those sorts of things. So what happened was the government gave us, from the start, terms of reference that we had to work on, and that we had to hear views from the people on. And those terms of reference on a range of constitutional topics included the pros and cons of having our constitution written down in a single document, the role of the Bill of Rights Act 1990 in our constitution, the role of the Treaty of Waitangi in our constitution, how Māori views should be represented in national and local government, electoral issues such as the size of Parliament and the length of its term. People were also welcome to comment on other aspects of New Zealand's Constitution. The panel can consider and report on other topics if there is sufficient interest. That meant that if people wanted to comment on things like republicanism, the flag, anything else, we don't rule it out. And now that submissions are coming in, people are commenting on things like protecting the environment, things, and we are certainly considering all of those things. So we pondered over these terms of reference, and we thought, well, how do we get people to, how do we jog them, how do we get them to submit on these things? And if you look at constitutions around the world, they usually start with a preamble. And a preamble reflects the values and aspirations of the country. If you look at a constitution, it's about, how a country is ruled. And we thought, we took it back to, really it's not about us, it's about the future of the country. So we got people in from the Department of Statistics, and we got them to tell us about the future demographics of this country. What's this country going to look like in 20, 30, 50 years' time for our grandchildren, for our, what sort of country do we want for them? So we came up with two aspirational questions for people to consider first. What are your aspirations for Aotearoa New Zealand? How do you want our country to be run in the future? And we want people to think about that first. And then we wanted them to think about the 5 special topics. The role of the Bill of Rights Act 1990 in our Constitution. It protects certain rights, but doesn't protect enough of our rights. It doesn't protect property rights, for example. Should it protect property rights? What are property rights? How do you define property rights? What are the consequences if it did protect property rights? The role of the Treaty of Waitangi in our Constitution. Should it be in the Constitution? Should it be separate from the Constitution? What would be the consequences of that? Electoral issues such as the size of Parliament and the length of its term. Electoral issues. What about a list MP, if he or she gets ejected from his or her party? Should he or she stay on in Parliament, or should he or she be made to resign? What are the pros and the cons of having our Constitution written down in a single document? Should it be updated, be able to be updated? Should it be, it's the same as it is now? Should we have to change anything? How should Māori be represented in local and national government? So we put all of those things out there. As a lot of people have already said, it's not broken. Why fix it? And that's a very good question. Most countries don't really deal with their constitutions unless they have a crisis, unless they have a civil war. Although, as Jeffrey Palmer said, or is it Matthew Palmer said, now's quite a good time to deal with it. We're not in a crisis. We don't have to deal with it in a hurry. We can have a good conversation about it. Those are all questions that people are talking about. They're putting in their submissions. We don't know what will happen with this. We honestly don't know. Submissions close on the 1st of July. Of course, we will consider late submissions when they come up. Submissions are pouring in now, and we're reading over them. Because the government has said that they are not going to take the MMP review any further, of course we have had feedback from that. People have said, well, how do you know this won't get dumped to them? We don't, but we can say that there are some differences. This is driven by an independent panel, and therefore it's taken on a life of its own, and it's a conversation that we believe will go on further beyond the next election. Secondly, it has this cross-party reference group, which is very interested in it and is keen to take it further in the next election.